Howdy all, happy Friday. It's the Friday before the beginning of the Stanley Cup final, so we're going to be talking about a few things and taking some questions from the chat. Have to start off with this. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's sort of the unofficial beginning of summer for most people. And for us, for my family, it's the first time we do the barbecue, like the
yeah, we don't even do that anymore.
No,
nope. Nope, don't care.
Well, no, I mean, it's just more tradition than anything. It's just like,
He's dead. We don't do it.
Okay, and let's end the show right now.
No, I'm just saying. We observe Memorial Day for what it is. But as far as having like one of those family barbecues, nope, don't do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this year it's gonna be at my brother's, and it's like sausage and hot dogs and something of that nature. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. They're sort of like there's like the three pillars of summer. It's Memorial Day, July 4th, and then Labor Day. And Labor Day is obviously you're at the halfway point when you get to July 4th, and when you get to Labor Day, it's like put the barbecue away if it's we have a barbecue inside the garage. So
yeah, mine's in the garage, and it's been there for like 2 years without being even freshened up. It's not even a big one. It's a gas one, but it's a little one, like a hibachi one, and I probably won't even bring it out more than once or twice a year.
It's like everybody I know has got the grill that's got the propane tanks attached to it.
Yeah, I have the little propane tank because it's just there's two of us here, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, my father years and years ago attached the gas grill to the gas line. So, we just we could use we don't have to go and fill the tanks and all that stuff, which is a pain in the butt. I was talking to a fellow reporter a couple of weeks ago, and he says, yeah, I was barbecuing and it was nice. And all of a sudden we ran out of propane, and like I had a steak that was like raw, and there's like, so you have to go all the way to the gas station or whatever to get propane in the middle.
See, like here, Thomas says he's going fishing. I don't even like fishing, but I would do fishing over the barbecue.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I think I fished once in my life.
Once, that's it.
Yeah, I know. I've never that's never been part of our sort of. Yeah, no.
I've water in Buffalo. I know. I've seen it.
Oh, I know, but believe me, I've gone out on a boat, like like a recreation.
Not fished at all.
No, I've gone out on a boat once in my life.
Once? That's it?
Once, yes.
Was it a rowboat? What the hell was it?
No, it was a motor. It was like a motorboat. It was like a small motorboat, and we went swimming in the. And if for people in the Western New York area, you'll know where I'm talking about. There is an inlet in North Tonawanda, right near, which is the closest like sort of inlet to Niagara Falls. So the water is very fast, even though this is sort of off the beaten path. And, lots of people go out there and go swimming in that water. And I went in there and, you put your head down and you start swimming and you look and all of a sudden I'm 50 feet away from the boat. And it took me like the greater part of a half an hour
to
get back. And I was exhausted. I'm like, I don't like boats that much. It's like, I haven't gone back on a boat and fishing. Fishing.
My last time on a boat was for a party in New York, and I should find the picture somewhere because it's off an old cell phone. I may have only had at that point a flip phone with a camera, and we literally drifted straight towards the Statue of Liberty, and I took a picture of the Statue of Liberty. Like it looked like it was only 100 yards ahead in front of me. That's how close it was, and it was awesome. So you're missing out, Mike.
Yeah, a couple other items before we get started. First, I'm surprised at this in the world of baseball. Hanley Ramirez gets designated for assignment.
He's hitting like 115.
I know it. I mean, this is remember now. I think it was their previous general manager who signed Sandoval and who signed Hanley Ramirez. So Dombrowski is basically clearing the decks.
Yeah.
And I think Ramirez is making over $20 million for another 3 or 4 years. So I mean, the Reds
really bad deal. Like here's the thing: like when Hanley Ramirez came up and he was a shortstop, he was a pretty good fielding shortstop. Not great. He used to make errors, but he was a great hitter, so they overlooked it. Once he started getting moved around and around and around, nobody should have signed him to a long-term deal. Nobody.
Yeah, I remember them putting him in left field. It was the Dodgers put him in left field. He was still a good hitter then, but now it's like, he goes to Boston and they put him in left field, and you're thinking, oh, Ramirez, it's like Manny Ramirez. Well, no, he can't hit like Manny Ramirez.
At times, Boston doesn't know what to do with their money, and they can bury it like the Yankees, so because they make so much. That's what they'll do with him. But if you think about contracts that they've buried, oh my gosh.
Well, they can trade him and eat most of the money or some of the money like they did with Sandoval, or they can just designate him. They can just release him, and then somebody.
Here's his numbers. He has a 290 lifetime, which is pretty good in this year, especially 269 for homers, 909 RBIs, 281 steals. So if you look on Baseball Reference, his comparable players are, let's see, hold on.
What is he, 32, 33?
34.
34. Okay. And here's a lesson.
Here's the comparable, sorry. David Wright, Chase Utley, Ian Kinsler, Brett Boone, Ryan Zimmerman. No more. I don't even think Zimmerman only had a resurgence last year, so I don't know if Travis Fryman. So what that basically means is, hey, nice career. That's it. A good ball player. That's what he was. A good ball player.
Yeah, and the thing that kills him is that he's a hack in the field. But no, here's a lesson that can be carried across both sports, both baseball and hockey. You see it with the Yankees. You see it with the Red Sox. With the Red Sox, it's Benintendi, Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., Rafael Devers, all young guys in the organization that they've and with the Yankees, it's Sanchez and Judge. And they acquired Gleyber Torres, so they got in a trade, but he's been developed in the last year or so. So it's getting young guys via trades or developing your own young guys, and then you supplement or you complement with veteran guys, like Stanton in New York, and to a lesser extent like Hanley Ramirez in Boston. And when it doesn't work, it's bad.
I think players are getting ruined by this new launch angle theory, because now with the amount of strikeouts, like pretty soon in another couple of years, you won't be able to match anybody up strikeout wise from this era to the last one and maybe to the last 2 or 3, because players are striking out at an alarming rate, right? And so the problem is, if you were one of those players, like I remember they said Eric Hosmer, they were talking to him about launch angle. Now this guy's an excellent hitter, right? Great on base percentage. And they want more homers out of them. Yeah. Like, it's just, at the end of the day, what's going to happen here is players like that, not Hosmer because he said he was fighting it, but other players are going to get away from that. They're going to get into the launch angle. They'll have a couple of years with high homer numbers, and they're all going to turn into Dave Kingman, and they're going to find themselves like Hanley Ramirez in the minors very quickly.
Yeah, we're gonna have a league of Rob Deers. Yeah. You remember Rob Deere was a guy who basically hit 230, walked 100 times, hit 30, 35 home runs. Yeah. But he was sort of just a one-dimensional player. I hope the baseball is not going that direction, but it seems like it is, and that's.
Well, I think it'll turn around, but I think it will take another year or so, and that could ruin some careers. You watch, it's going to.
Yeah. All right, I'll save my other thing for later in the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, May 25th, 2018.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Let's start with this. I just came over about an hour or so ago, and this is, we got to remember, folks, that right now we're sort of in that limbo in between the 2 conference finals and the Stanley Cup final, which will start on Monday. We'll make our predictions at the end of the show, but right now the news that's out there is not really – there's some interesting little things, and we're going to talk about a rumor that popped up out of Pittsburgh in a minute, but I wanted to talk about the signing of Elias Pettersson, who Russ and I both saw at the World Junior in Buffalo in December and January. He signed his 3-year entry-level deal with the Canucks. And in the wake of Henrik Sedin and Daniel Sedin retiring, There's a big gap there, and there's a lot of people who think that Vancouver is going to be a big player in free agency, but I also think that they're going to, and I think more of their focus is going to be on bringing in and developing their own young players, and Pettersson, Russ, I think, is a central figure in that.
Yeah, he's a central figure, but I don't know if I would play him at the NHL level next year, because while he has all those great skills, is he 175 pounds yet? He's 6'2". He's very skinny. And the problem is, look, I know Sam Girard is also thin like that, but he's a smaller guy. Pettersson is a taller, really thin guy. I would be afraid in the Western Conference that he is just going to take a beating for a while. And I don't know if I'd want him to go through that. So that's what you have to sort of think twice about. Is he really ready for that, or do you let him play overseas another year? I mean, they could do that. They don't have to, just because they signed him doesn't mean he has to come over.
That's true. Or he could play in Utica for a year.
Yeah, see, I don't even want him in Utica, because I think he'll get knocked around in that league too.
He's playing against older guys in that league. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I mean,
he had a great year. He had like 56 points, which is unheard of in that league, but let him dominate that league some more. I had a great conversation with Shel Samuelson middle of the season this year, because he had seen him a couple times over there and couldn't stop talking about him. And at first I thought he was talking about Jesper Pettersson, the former Flyers defenseman, and because he actually had a really good year and he seemed to have a little resurgence in his career. And then I realized, oh no, he's talking about Elias, and he couldn't say enough great things about him, but I don't want to rush him.
Well, and I just, as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, well, wait a second. We were talking about how, and here's the difference between the leagues. We were talking about how Tolvanen was dominating as an 18-year-old playing for, I think it was Jokerit, and how, you know, Nashville signed him and brought him over, and it was surprising he never got into a playoff game. But that was in the KHL. He was playing against adults. In the SHL, where Pettersson played, you know, he's playing against adults, but he's not playing against players that I think are NHL level, whereas KHL players I think are at a little bit of a higher level. I'm not trying to insult the Swedish league, but I think that's just a reality. And maybe you're right. Maybe he's better staying over there and developing for another year and getting in better physical shape and getting stronger. And then as a 20-year-old, then maybe coming over.
That's the way they should go. I really do. I mean, they're not going to be a playoff team next year unless they were to sign John Tavares, right? And even then you would still look at him and say, there's an outside chance. So why am I rushing him?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know, and this until I see proof otherwise, I'm still going to assume that the ownership in Vancouver is going to force Jim Benning to push the wrong buttons, because every time I say, okay, they're going in the right direction, they're, you know, Horvat is getting more of a bigger role, they're leaning more on Besser and Godobin and Virtanen and the young guys.
Yeah.
Every time I see that, then they sign Louis Eriksson, or, you know what I'm saying? They make a move that is completely counterintuitive. They re-sign Erica Branson. They do things that don't make sense for a team that's rebuilding. That's why I'm saying, okay, if they get in on John Tavares, I mean, that's not stupid, because John Tavares is a superstar player. But if they go out and sign James Van Riemsdyk and Tyler Bozak, which I've heard little rumors of, to me, that smacks of they're stuck in this same limbo where they want to justify to their ticket holders, oh, we're still trying to win, when they should be, and I'm not saying tanking, they should be developing their young guys and playing their young guys a lot of minutes and letting them develop.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately they're going to be that team that is like Jekyll and Hyde. They're going to do that, and they're still going to dip into free agency too.
Yeah. And I just think that's counterproductive. But anyway, okay. Now, a rumor that popped up, and, you know, I'm not going to say whether I believe it or not, but we're just going to use it as a point of conversation here. And I've heard the talk about this going back during the season. the Pittsburgh Penguins, they won 2 cups in a row, so you can't really be disappointed. They did their utmost to try to win a third. They made a trade at the deadline to bring in Derek Brassard as the Nick Bonino replacement, and it didn't work. They couldn't beat Washington. They lost in 6 games, and now there's some talk about Jim Rutherford sort of doing a minor reset, and the name that pops up is Phil Kessel. And if you look at what Pittsburgh has done in the offseason or even before, like after the deadline, they re-signed Patrick Hornquist, extended him for 5 years at $5.3 million. Now they have Kessel for another 4 years, and remember, Toronto is retaining, I think, 15% of his $8 million salary. I think it was 15. Yeah. And he's making 6.8 for another 4 years. Now he had a good year this year, Russ, but maybe they're thinking, we know, I'm not going to go into the hot dog thing, but we know that the physicality and his ability to stay in shape has always been questioned. And one of the reasons why the Leafs justified trading Kessel when they did was, okay, well, you don't want to have this guy when he's 33 or 34. So it does make a little bit of sense if Pittsburgh is shopping him to shop him now.
Okay, I mean, I get the shopping now thing, but he did have 32 goals, 75 points, and 9 points in the playoffs. Like, it's just Pittsburgh – in another year might be having to do a bigger overhaul. I don't think I would trade Phil Kessel now. I think I'd still have to go for the cup one more time with this group and then see where I am next year, because who knows, in 2 years Matt Murray may be continually injured, and that plays into their downfall a little bit, where they fall back to the middle of the pack. If I trade Kessel now, I don't know where I'm getting those goals from. 32 goals is a lot, even for that team.
Well, the one thing, if you look at their salary cap on Cap Central, Gensel is got 1 more year on his ELC, then he's up, so they got to sign him. Rust, who's one of your favorite players, is an RFA right now. Right, I know that we're signing, but they're going to have to give them money, and that might be the whole
Gensel
thing.
Will get big money, but that's next year, and that's why I would wait another year.
Right. Unless you can get him for a lower amount now, coming up before, because if he puts another big year up, then you're talking about paying, significantly higher money. So, I mean, that's the thing. This might be simple allocation of fund. If you can't move Letang, which we've heard that rumor before, and I think the reason that they can't move Letang is because Letang's play has dropped considerably. His health is always – I mean, that's the thing. If you're trading Kessel, you're trading a guy who's played, I think, every game since the season he was traded to Toronto, which was 2008. So he hasn't missed a game in almost 10 years.
And then I remember Keith Hernandez got traded from the Mets to the Indians.
Don't remind me.
With that same scenario, and then he had this calf injury, and it eventually did him in, and he couldn't stay on the field with the Indians. Like, sometimes that's what happens to a player. Like, they don't miss any games, and then all of a sudden they just can't stay healthy anymore. I think I would hold off. I think I would be trading Derek Brassard, if you ask me, because that's the easier guy to trade. That's the easier contract to trade. He's a guy that was sort of a risk anyhow, but it was a good one. We all liked it because we know what he could do. At the end of the day, he didn't really get a chance to show what he can do. I mean, he had 4 points in 12 games in the playoffs. He was pretty banged up. He had 8 points in 14 games in the regular season. Like, I think you could send Derek Brassard somewhere and still get a little bit of a return. I can't send Kessel anywhere because at the end of the day, he's the second leading goal scorer on this team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, remember Brassard – Ottawa retained salary on him, so he's only making $3 million his final year, which makes him even more valuable.
Yes.
But the whole reason that they traded for him is because we know that threat of having 3 centers is one of the determining factors of why Pittsburgh won 2 Stanley Cups. Now, you can also say Kessel was, but more the first one than the second one. The second cup, he really didn't perform that great. But I mean, I'm just saying, unless you're getting back more than what you gave in that deal, unless you're getting more than Philip Gustafson in a first-round pick or whatever, I think they keep Brassard because he's cheap and because I think even if they do trade Kessel, I mean, you got to remember, they trade Kessel. He's coming off a couple 30-goal years. He's a consistent play. You know, he's always in the lineup. He always scores. You're probably going to get a good return for him for a team that needs goal scoring.
Right, but I know you don't think this, but the Penguins need a certain amount of goal scoring too, and they're really not going to get it from their minors. I mean, even if Daniels, but he's not going to get more than 20 goals. He's just not. Doesn't matter who he plays with. Next year, to predict anything more than that would be crazy. And so I'm looking at the cap situation, and you're right. Letang's not going anywhere, but I heard he also – look, he has a no move and a no trade, so it would be very hard to trade him anyhow. So I heard he is getting one more chance to sort of play better defensively. He had a lot of points. So
and Kessel has need – I think Kessel has a limited no trade, and that's about it.
Kessel is he has a no move and a no trade.
Well, unless he agreed.
I guess he has to make a list, right?
Well, yeah, the thing is, I think that he may have had a no move and a no trade when he was with Toronto, but he either waived them.
I'm going by what Cap Friendly says.
He waived him because he was traded.
Yeah, well, I don't know. No trade, no movement. Player submits 18 trade list. I think that's still legit. I think that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I know that with some other contracts, if you waive a no move clause to be traded, then the no move clause with the next team is gone. It's like, okay. So, I mean, if that's not the case, I mean, now, and as soon as we heard this, I said that the one team that popped up, and the reason it popped up is because of the former assistant coach of the Penguins was apparently the sort of Kessel whisperer. He was the guy that Kessel talked to and had a connection with was Rick Tocchet. And Arizona is a favorite, and I'm not using this in terms of the negative connotation, but Arizona is the favorite dumping ground of a lot of teams. And if you look at their situation cap-wise, they took on Marcus Kruger as a salary dump. They took on Dave Bolin to basically get to the cap floor. Both of those contracts are up after next year. So I don't think they would be completely opposed to taking on the $6.8 million cap hit of Kessel in a deal, especially when Kessel's contract, and I'm looking it up right now, there you go. After this year, the cap hit 6.8. The money is 5.8, 5.8, 4.8, 4.8. So it goes down. So that's perfect for Arizona, who doesn't want to spend any money.
You know, to be honest, I think what I would do is I would keep Kessel. I would trade Brassard, get that first round pick back.
Right.
I would then try and get Mike Green in free agency.
Well, the funny thing was, to take your point, if you're talking about, okay, you trade Kessel, you get rid of his money, and now all of a sudden you need somebody to score goals. Well, a guy who scored goals for you for more than a few years is a free agent this year named James Neal.
Yeah, I don't think they would go back to him because I think they realize if they want to keep the pace high, he's not the guy. I think if they went with Green, then A, it gives them an insurance policy if Letang goes down, but B,
he's a right-hand shot too.
Yeah, he could be giving them the goals on the power play, and that could be as good a help as anything. It adds to their depth on defense, which is something they need desperately, and they still could get another lesser player. I mean, you probably could get Mike Green 1 year for like $5 million.
And they're spending an awful lot of money on defense right now, though.
They are, but you have to. I mean, if they want any chance of winning, they're going to have to. And I think you could get Green, and then you can get somebody else, whether that, like, let's say they trade the Rangers for Nemestikov. You do something, even though he's an RFA, something else to add some other offense and try that. But I think that's the route I would go because I still think you could get the points from the blue line. I don't think there's any way of replacing Kessel's points.
Yeah. Now, just taking a couple teams here that have made playoff exits, and I mean, the one that I want to talk about first is the one that I thought was going to go to the final instead of Washington, and that's Tampa Bay. the report from Eric Erlinson came out. I guess this was from Locker Cleanout. Is Kucherov said he was not banged up at all or had any injury or any other situation.
He just played poorly.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like Stamkos said he doesn't require any kind of off-season surgery or special treatment, that he felt good toward the end of the postseason.
That's a first. That's good.
Yeah, right, and that's a first. But the thing is, honestly, based on the way they played, I was expecting a mash, like them being ready for like multiple surgeries.
Well, I think guys,
the fact that they weren't.
Yeah,
the fact that they weren't, that speaks volumes to me.
Well, I mean, again, some of those, Ranger older players played old. McDonough played his heart out, but kept getting nicked up. They need to shed some salaries, and they've got to figure out. I guess they're going to still keep Callahan around because they love him. Fine, he had a fairly good season, but. Maybe you get rid of Braden Coburn. He has probably a year left, right? I got to look at their.
Braden Coburn has 1 year at $3.7 million.
Yeah.
This is the funny thing. Their entire defense, other than Hedman, is all up as unrestricted free agents after next year. McDonough, Stralman, Coburn, Girardi. So that means
they're going to make a contract offer too this summer. I'm pretty sure of that.
To McDonough, yeah, I would think so.
And so I would get rid of Coburn. That'll save me some money. I would, if they're going to keep Callahan, fine. If they're going to keep Girardi for another year, I mean, he did do okay, but he did wind down. They're going to figure out how to bring in Dachin, like you said, and Cuckoo more, so these guys don't wind down if they're only going to use them in the playoffs. I'm assuming John Cooper's job is safe. We kept hearing maybe it's not, but I think at this point it is. And so they don't have a ton of high-priced offensive players they could really move out. Kucherov, I'm telling you, I'm not giving him 7 years. There's no way.
Well, then maybe you're trading him. Then
maybe I might. I mean,
I don't particularly believe this, but it's something that if it happens, I guess I won't be shocked. But one of the teams that has supposedly been on the Tavares target list has been Tampa. And that would give you the 1-2 Stamkos Tavares punch. Honestly, if they do that, then I'm thinking either they're trading Kucherov or they're playing him one more year and letting him walk.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that they will do probably.
Now he's an RFA. He's not a UFA, so
right. They won't let him walk, but they'll maybe trade him as an RFA.
Right.
I could see that happening, especially if they went for Tavares. But otherwise, they're going to give him another chance. But again, he needs to prove himself in the playoffs. Like he had those last 4 or 5 games, he was bad. He was not a team leader.
Yeah, and if you look at I mean, if they choose to buy out like a Coburn to create cap space,
yeah,
that's you're probably saving yourself a couple $1 million in the buyout. It would spread over 2 years. So I mean, that would open up.
Somebody that'll take him for a year that just needs a plug, like at Detroit or somebody like that who just needs a defenseman. That's fine. But
again, I don't see them trading the Palots, the Johnsons, the Cologne, as long as
Cooper's there, they're not.
Exactly. As long as Cooper's there, these guys are.
Sorry, yeah, they have to do it on the blue line, I think, and Coburn would seem to be the odd man out because what did he really do? And that's why he fought, by the way, because at that point he wasn't really contributing.
He wanted to show he was valuable in some way. Yeah.
Right.
Now, the other team in the division, we'll talk about Boston and Toronto, and then move on to the Cup.
Toronto's in the Cup?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah,
Did I just wake up in a parallel universe?
Yeah, no, an alternate one.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, whatever.
The Bruins, I mean, I think the Bruins are in pretty good shape. I mean, I think they played better than I expected in the playoffs. I mean, they had a great regular season, and they beat Toronto in 7 games, and then I think they ran up against a better team in Tampa. And Boston had, in a very quick way, Boston has turned around that organization. They've built some depth, especially on the blue line, and they have some young forwards coming like Senyshyn, and Trent Frederick and a few others.
I don't know if any of them are coming next year. Even Forsback or Carlson didn't blow me away when I've seen them recently. I don't know if any of them are coming next year, right? That's the thing.
Donato and Bjork, maybe?
Bjork definitely will get that look again, and Donato, there's a chance. But when you're starting flat-footed at the start of the season, Donato may still need to get some pro seasoning, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know where Boston I would think that, you know, Rick Nash is gone, even though there's talk about he wants to stay. I don't think so. You know, they're probably going to sign a couple of their fourth liners who are UFAs, but you know, where I know that, you know, and I saw this like right after they got eliminated. I remember Ty Anderson saying they need to bolster on defense, you know, to help Chara. And I'm like, look at their defense. I don't see where it really needs upgrading. I mean, it's young.
Yeah. I mean, they're clearly not going to retain Holden. He's a UFA.
Now, the talk is, and this is what the talk is that they may deal Torrey Krug.
That makes no sense.
Exactly. I mean, Torrey Krug is a fit with the way the game is played now. I mean, and he scored, I think, over 50 points this year. So, why would you, unless you think that McAvoy and Carlo and Grzelcyk can fill the gap and you can save money there and spend it on another forward or something of that nature. I don't get it.
The two contracts that are killing them are Krejci and Backus. And I don't think they can do anything about either one of them.
No.
So the best that they can do, they could buy out Adam McQuaid or just bury him. That's 2.7. I might do that because they're going to get a raise in the cap, and at least they could get another defenseman on the market.
But I don't think Adam McQuaid kills them. I think Adam McQuaid's if you stack him on the bottom pairing, it doesn't kill you. I don't think it makes a lot of difference. Krejci, he's one of your top two centers. He gets hurt constantly. This year he didn't. He gets hurt constantly, and he's making more than Bergeron. He's making more than Pasternak. He's making more than Marchand. He's making 7.2. And when you've got 5 guys making over $6 million, that's a wham. I mean, that's a big whammy in terms of salary cap right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at McQuaid at 31. He played the entire playoffs. We don't look for points from him, but 38 regular season games. Here's the thing. 2012, he played 32. 2013, he played 30. Then 63, 64, 77. Then back to 38. He's got a bad injury history. Like, I just would get rid of the 2.7 if I can. And that would be, with that and the cap going up, my savings. And I'll figure out where to get another defenseman on the market or retain Holden if I have to at a cheap rate, just to have him on the bottom pairing, because at least there's a chance of getting points out of Holden. Grzelcyk's there. I got to see if they have anybody that might be able to help out on defense.
Jeremy Luzon, Zaboro.
I don't know if he's ready. I don't think they're looking at him, and I don't think Zaboro's ready yet. But let me see real quick, because I did just see Providence play too. Vakanainen had a really nice year, but he's only 19. I don't know if they're going to go there. I think he did just sign his deal, though, didn't he?
Not that I heard, but it's
okay. So Vakanainen might be someone that they look at, but that's not the Bruins' way. So I'm going to say they're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could bring Zaboral up. I think he needs another year in the A. I think he did okay. Yeah, they're at that point where guys are another year or two away. They spent a lot of assets this year thinking they could catch lightning in a bottle, and now they're going to be one of those teams that's like they're going to have to deal with what they've got and get like a free agent. And like I said, maybe you give Nick Holden a cheap contract and keep him there, or but you're right, they're going to keep McQuaid because it's easy.
Yeah.
And then the only thing they can do is get a free agent with the cap save, when the cap goes up.
Right.
And they're stuck in the mud that way. Like, they've got to have guys stay healthy and produce. Otherwise, they're going nowhere. And
the pressure is going to be increased now with them being tantalized that they came this close, But the thing is that
think about how bad this contract was for Backus, and we knew it was a bad deal.
Yep.
He had 33 points.
Mm-hmm.
He had 3 points in the playoffs. He's getting $6 million a year at the age of 34.
Yeah, they traded out of a potential bad contract extension by moving Lucic to LA a year.
He's only slightly better than Lucic.
Right, and exactly, and then they freed themselves up by trading Lucic, and then just put themselves in the same situation with a different guy, which is.
And you don't know if Jake DeBrusk will start off next year as hot as he was. Right. Your chances are he will level off a little bit.
Yeah, you hope so, but you never know.
Right, and so Boston's in a tough spot. Like they've locked themselves in again to at least 2 bad contracts offensively, and Chara's not killing them for the $5 million, but everything else, they're a little thin. There's no way around it. I mean, Carlo coming back certainly helps them because they survived without Carlo. Just getting him back will be a boost, and we'll see.
With the Maple Leafs, and we've talked about it before. The free agents, I would say it's like 99% that Van Riemsdyk is signing elsewhere. I mean, if there was any chance of him signing back with the Leafs, I think the Kane deal really killed it because I think he'll get just as much as Kane did, maybe on a year or two shorter because he's a couple years older. But I think Van Riemsdyk is going to hit it big in free agency. And yeah, I've heard some buzz about them re-signing Tyler Bozak if it's a shorter-term deal. He obviously wants to stay in Toronto. Like locker clean out, he said, "I love it here. The only team I've ever."
Say that though,
I know, but I mean, he's been there for almost 10 years, and I think that Babcock does like him as sort of a role player, power play specialist, third line center, face-off guy, as long as he doesn't come in for a ton. Like if he asks for $3 million on a couple of years, I think
he's not doing that. He's getting more
right. If he's getting, he's 32 years old. If he's getting a 4 or 5 year deal,
this is what his agent's going to do because this is his last shot.
Right, and I don't, and that's the thing. If he gets a 4 or 5 year deal for somebody, he's taking it because he's not going to get that from Toronto. If he gets 3 year deals from people, then he might stay in Toronto. But I think he'll get a longer deal. Like a team like Vancouver has been.
Someone will give him 4 years.
Yeah, I mean Buchanan's more. Komarov, I think they're all gone. Although Komarov's agent is going to talk with Kyle Dubas in the next few days or so. But
goes anywhere.
Right, exactly. Now with the Leafs, I mean the whole thing is the contracts that are to come. Nylander is an RFA. Matthews and Marner are eligible for extensions on July 1. There's a lot of talk about the Leafs being preemptive or proactive and signing Matthews to the 8-year extension a la Connor McDavid and getting it done this year, because if he puts up another big year, then he just increases his leverage to be potentially the highest paid player in the league.
Actually, I got to lock them both up.
I agree. I think you have to lock up Marner, but the thing is, Marner led the team in scoring. How can you say, okay, Mitch, we're gonna give Austin 11.
Because he's a center and he does more.
Exactly. And that's what I think, but it's still the optics of it and that's going to be a tricky thing for Kyle Dubas, is that, okay, we're going to pay Matthews 11 and we're going to pay Marner 7. I mean, that's $4 million, because I think that in general is where the money is going to go. And then I keep getting the feeling that Nylander is going to be a bridge deal.
Yeah, I think for now he's probably going to get a bridge deal, but with the, nod from management saying, "Hey, look, let us lock up these 2 deals. You're next."
Right.
So we've got to, let some contracts fall off, because I think Marlowe's, when does his fall off?
He's got 2 more years.
Right. So Marlowe's will fall off during your bridge deal. That will help us, and I think Nylander will do that because it's a good situation. But I think they got to lock up the other 2 guys. I think even Nylander would realize that Marner is, a bigger player than he is right now. It's close,
right?
But I think they would realize that. He would realize that. And I think that's what Dubas has to do. He has to lock up these 2 contracts quickly. Get that out of the way so you know what you've got left. and you know what you could spend in free agency. So that's what I would be concentrating on.
And one move, and it's been rumored, it's been mentioned, so this isn't an original thought, but I wanted to look up the particulars of the contract. Don't be surprised, because one of Lamoriello's first signings, I believe, I think it was second year, was Matt Martin. And Matt Martin basically lost his role with the Leafs with Babcock at the end of this year. Played, I think, 3 games after the All-Star break. I think he's still an effective player for the type of player that he is. He's got 2 years left.
That's
right. He's got two more years at $2.5 million. But
yeah, it's cheap enough where he never hurt you.
But here's the thing: each year has the signing bonus that's payable by the team that has him on July 1st. It's $1.5 million signing bonus for Matt Martin on July 1st, which basically means he's a $2.5 million cap hit with a $1 million salary. So and I think Matt Martin will be traded after July 1st, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's back to the Islanders and Lou.
Yeah, they'll wait for that bonus to happen, and then they'll try and get him. I agree. He's a Lou kind of player. And that makes sense. Let's talk about a prospect real quick.
Yeah.
Let's go Keandre Miller, defenseman. I have to look. I always forget my list. I'll pull it up. Right now he's a guy that he's 6'3", 206, and this guy is built. Like this guy, I was standing next to him after a tournament, and I was just like, wow. At this age already, this guy is like a man, and he skates great. He's physical. He is new at playing defense, though. So that's the part that you have to sort of reconcile and say, all right, we know that he's going to be a little bit of a project because he was used to playing forward, but excellent defensive awareness, uses his body. He lays big hits. He's really good at puck retrieval. I think he's excellent at that. Hard one-timer. Gets back quickly on defense. He's sort of like he reminds me a little bit of Nurse, a little bit of Darnell Nurse. And it wouldn't shock me if he has a little more offense in his game than a Darnell Nurse, but I think it will take a little time. I've got him 15, and he played with the NTDP this year. So that's a guy where if you're drafting anywhere between 14 and 18, you'll have a shot at him. And I think he could be a second pairing guy in the NHL. Mm. And he's a good guy to look at, because these days, the defenseman, look, not every defenseman is going to score 50 points, but they all have to be puck movers, and they all have to be able to handle themselves to some degree, even if they're smaller guys. As right. far as just, on the wall, in the corners, you could avoid some stuff like a Sam Girard, but you have to have 3 or 4 guys that can play the other way too. He'll be one of those guys, and I'll tell you, when you're 6'3" and you could do those other things, that's hard to handle. So that's pretty valuable for a team. And so I think, I don't know who's picking 15th, I forget, but I think that's, those teams right around 14 to 18, they should be looking at him.
Yeah, I'm just looking up who the NHL draft here just to see who is picking.
Again, this isn't a mock, right? I just ranked them. And
no, I know. Just
science, so.
Right, but 15th is the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, Panthers.
16th is Colorado. I mean, for their lack of depth on, even though they did get Girard, for their lack of organizational depth on defense,
he would be a great pick for them.
Would be a great pick for them. And to that point, it's funny because I think we're still, at least some people I know, and maybe sometimes myself, we're still stuck in that mentality of the defensive defenseman being some guy who's bigger and slower. Now the defensive defenseman has to, even though he may not have offensive skills, he's still got to be a fast player.
As an example, the Flyers want to turn Philippe Myers into their shutdown defenseman, as they call it now. They don't say defensive defenseman anymore. And he definitely has skating ability, stick handling ability, and offense in his game, but also has size and strength, right? So that is what they're looking at. Miller had 29 points in 58 games. And so that's pretty good. And he only had 26 PIMs. So in the under 18s, he had 3 points in 7 games. So like I said, he'll be like a mid-level performer point-wise, but he can really help a team defensively and with physicality on the plus side. So, yep, Colorado, that's a good team.
All right, we're going to make our predictions. If anybody has questions in the chat, put them in there now. Okay, but I'll go first. Not going to go really in depth, just what my feeling on the series, and I think anybody who knows what I've been picking, this will not be a shock. But I have to say, I can't say now I'm not a believer in the Washington Capitals in terms of their ability to not choke, because they haven't. They got by Pittsburgh. They got by Tampa. Now they're playing Cinderella, but I've bought into Cinderella. I've bought into the Golden Knights. They have met every challenge. Now I think that Washington's going to pose a lot of problems for them. I mean, Washington's probably going to. I think Washington's more physical than Winnipeg, and Winnipeg tried to be very physical with Vegas, and I think Braden Holtby is probably further along in terms of maturity than Connor Hellebuyck. I don't think Hellebuyck played badly against Vegas, but I think Holtby can step it up. And you've got the experience of Ovechkin and Oshie and Backstrom. So I think Washington is going to be the toughest matchup for Vegas. But I still think that what Vegas does, and we've talked about what they've done, throughout the playoffs, it's tough for any team to match up against them. And if they continue to play that high-paced counterattack, constantly nipping at the heels of every team, and they are rested, so that it's not like they're coming into this series, gassed after beating Winnipeg. I don't know whether Washington can handle that, and I don't think they will. So I'm going to take the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games.
I can see that. I'm going to counter you though. I'm looking at this series, and again, I go back to Washington going into Pittsburgh, Game 6, beating Pittsburgh. To me, they lost any choking moniker they had then. You didn't believe that, but now I think after the last win, you would even say, okay, the choking part is really in the past. Now we're looking at, Braden Holtby is pretty locked in. Ovechkin, the most dangerous guy in the playoffs now, and that's a guy when you're game planning, that's not a pleasant thing to know that he's on the other side. Backstrom's at least healthy enough to make some passes and win a few faceoffs. That's good because that's helped them. I think, like I said, Washington's defense has been greatly fixed for weeks. We've talked about that with guys like Verana and Burakovsky giving them the secondary scoring that they desperately needed, and Oshie being part of the hit machine that we talked about yesterday with Devontae Smith-Pelly and Wilson and everybody else and Orpik. I think they will wear down the Vegas Golden Knights. I think the size will do that. I think they will win in 7. I do think it'll go 7, and I think they'll win in 7 because I don't think Ovechkin's going to score every game, but he's going to be as physical as he was last round because now he can taste it, and I think that's going to be a big deal because, like it or not, he's going to get away with a lot, and he is going to use his body, and he's going to knock around some of those smaller guys on Vegas. Reeves is going to have to be in there. Englund's going to have to be in there. Tuck will have to use his size, but Washington's got 4 or 5 of those guys that are really key hit guys, and so now I'm going Washington 7.
Okay, I'm sure Eck will make his predictions before the game on Monday. I'm not sure right now whether we're going to have a show on Monday based on travel and things of that nature.
Yeah,
so
I mean, my guess is it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, because it's Memorial Day Monday, but and Game 1 is in Vegas. Game 1 and 2 are in Vegas, so we'll see. We'll stay tuned to my Twitter feed and X Twitter feed.
Here's questions. Okay. First one from Tidu 1983. Would you say Kotkaniemi, that one's going to foul me up all draft, is a reach for the Habs as number 3? I think it is. I think that even though I see what you're doing here, you want a center. I think if you want a center that bad, trade down in the draft and get another asset because they could use another player on that roster.
or trade the pick for an established center.
Yeah, no, I would trade down and get somebody like, even if, look, what if I could trade down with the Rangers and get Nemesnikov, right? That's a player that I could probably use and get some value out of. The Rangers can move up and they work out a pick swap.
Yeah,
I would do that, and then I would go get Kotkaniemi around. Well, I think with the Rangers around the 12th pick, I think.
Yes. No. The 11 to 12 are the Islanders.
11 and 12 are the Islanders. I think so.
I think the Rangers are 10. I'm almost sure.
Right. That's right. So yeah, at 10, I think you can get them, and that's what I would do if I were the Habs. But we all know that the Habs won't do what I want to do.
Yeah. I really think that the Habs, if their desire is to get that number one center, they're probably, and I know this is against what Russ would believe, because I think it's. I think if you're smart and you want to develop and you want to pick young players and go the right way, you don't trade first round picks for existing players. You find some other way to trade for the existing player and you pick your picks. But Montreal right now, with Claude Julien, with Marc Bergevin on shaky ground. The Rangers are 9th, by the way. With them, I think
that's actually a perfect trade for them then.
Yeah, with them on shaky ground, meaning I think they need to win in the next year or two, or they're both going to be out on their butts. Desperation is going to set in. So if there is a number one or number two center out there, because they obviously made a bad deal by trading Sergachev for Drouin. If the goal was to get a center, because Drouin is not a center, never has been a center, never will be a center. He's a winger. He's a good winger. He's a great young player, but he's not a center. So, if there's this, like Jonathan Taves or whatever, if that's out there, I think there's a better chance they're going to trade the number 3 pick and go out and get that existing center than it is they're going to stick at number 3 or move down. So, but that's just my opinion on the desperation of the Canadiens.
No, and I think, it's entirely possible. I'm not going to act like I've got a lockdown on this situation and I know exactly what's going to happen here, because I don't. So the next question. This is from Goalie FP. Goal scoring wise, which prospects could be big goal scorers next year? A la Keller, Besser this year. I would look at Casey Middlestat. I would look at Sam Steele, who's ripping it up for Regina. I can't imagine they're going to have him spend any time in the minors. I would look at there were a couple other guys I was just eyeballing.
Maybe Robert Thomas. Maybe
I don't know if Thomas is ready for the NHL yet, but he could be, but I don't want to go heavy on Thomas just yet. I think he's close.
How about Florida?
No, I'm going, Elias Anderson, Cody Glass. I think you could look at those guys too. Anderson may not be a huge goal scorer, but I think he is capable. 25.
I'm drawing a blank. Mississauga, Florida first round pick, winger.
Oh, yes. Owen Tippett could be that guy too. I think those names are really good names. And then as far as this draft, I'm not really looking for too many, but, Zadina for sure. I think he could step in like Hischier. I think Svechnikov will step in, and I think he'll get 20, 25. We'll see. Some people think he'll get more than that. Well,
so in this draft, we're going to go here. Hold on. Okay. In this draft, last year we had Hischier, and I think that was it, wasn't it? In terms of the top picks that stayed in the NHL past 10 games.
Patrick stayed.
Right.
That was the thing.
Right. Okay. So in this draft, do you think it's that top 4? Do you think it's Tkachuk, Zadina, Svechnikov, and Dahlin?
I think Tkachuk could if he wants to, but we'll see where they're at with him and whether he goes back to school one more year or does it. But otherwise, yeah, I think we're looking at Tkachuk, Zadina, and Svechnikov. And then I think Quinn Hughes is really close. But if his brother goes and plays for Michigan, I think he'll go back and play for Michigan. So I think that'll keep him out. I think Wallstrom's going to have to learn how to play better defense. So he's a few years. I think Farabee's a few years because of the the build. So I look at everybody else and I'm like, I wouldn't want to rush anybody. I'm sure somebody else will come up there. Maybe it's a Martin Kaut who's a big riser now. But yeah, I think those four are the safe ones with Darlene, Kachuk, Zadina, and Svechnikov. And then, but a Kachuk with a maybe.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah. Let's see what we got here. All right, Mike and Russ, the real question about the Golden Knights movie that'll be out in 2 years. Who will play who? My vote is for Anna Kendrick to play Fleury. I don't get that, but okay. How about Russell Crowe to play Gallant? Nah, Russell Crowe. He would have to lose like 50 pounds to play Gerard Gallant. I'm going Bryan Cranston for Gerard Gallant because I think you're going to need somebody who's very dramatic when you show the scene with he gets thrown out and all of his luggage is on the curb, and I think Cranston can pull that off. He'll be clean shaven for that part.
Yeah,
I think he can do it. I think he has similar features.
If he could lose a few pounds, I would say Paul Giamatti as George McPhee.
Yeah, George. I think George. No offense to Giamatti, is better looking than.
Well, yeah, I know that, but right. I mean, you're not going to get a perfect match here. It's like do a Josh Brolin as George McPhee, something like that.
Yeah, if he's less built up. If they don't show him without a shirt, maybe a Josh Brolin is good. You know who I'm thinking? Maybe you get Brad Pitt and dye his hair.
Okay. Since he has played a goalie in a previous movie, a previous Hollywood movie about hockey, I think Keanu Reeves as Marc-Andre Fleury would work.
Keanu Reeves as Marc-Andre Fleury. I like that, actually. I think that could work.
Because
Keanu has played hockey before and been in hockey movies, and
he can play the sort of the lighthearted thing. I mean, everybody seems
he's got a horrible beard when he grows it, like Fleury when he does just the little goatee there. I think that's a match.
Every okay, so we're gonna have to think of somebody short and French Canadian to play Jonathan Marchessault.
Oh, boy. I was gonna say Robin Coates, but he's a little too old.
No, jeez. Yeah, we'll give this some more thought. I mean, it's just Bill Foley. I would have the veteran actor Brian Cox play him. Brian Cox is the guy who played
Kim Coates. Sorry.
Oh yeah, okay. The Brian Cox is the actor who played the owner in For the Love of the Game, the Kevin Costner movie. He was the Detroit Tigers owner, so he's played pro sports owners before, and he's a really good actor. He's been in X-Men and Braveheart and a few other ones. I could see him as sort of a Bill Foley type. So, all right, any more questions?
Oh, I got it. I got the guy for Marcia. So Jason Priestley. And he knows how to skate, and he could already play hockey. I'm going Jason Priestley for Marcia. So
okay, so we got to find somebody for Luke Perry to play.
No, but Kim Coates should be like an assistant coach or something. He is great in hockey movies. All right. So another question is, this one comes from Troy Lombard. Do you see the Flyers trying to trade up? And I think 6 or 7 teams are going to try and trade up because that top 10 is so much better than the next 10 in this draft. And that's no slight on these guys. It's just.
Well, okay. Well, it might be easier to calculate this. Which of the top 10 teams do you think is most likely to be willing to trade out of the top 10? And I think one is Edmonton at 10. And the other, we mentioned Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Chicago. I don't think the Rangers want to. I don't think the Blackhawks want to.
No, the Rangers would move up if anything.
I don't think the Canucks want to trade out of the top.
I mean, if you think about it, I think Quinn would try and get Brady Tkachuk if there's a chance. Like he starts falling a little bit, maybe he could package his picks and get Brady Tkachuk. If he's there at number 4, and you're already at 9.
Yeah,
probably can make that happen.
I don't think Carolina wants to trade. I don't think Ottawa. I don't think Arizona. I mean unless Arizona gets somebody who helps them right away and is somebody relatively young, I don't see them moving out. So I think the only team out of the top 10 that's really going to be willing to trade out of there is maybe Edmonton at 10.
I think Edmonton is the most likely of all of them. I could see that. I actually could see that. So that makes a lot of sense. And
I have to just mention this, and I saw this about a week ago. There was a mention of a potential trade between Edmonton and Buffalo that was reported by Ryan Rashog of TSN. That when I mentioned it to you, Russ, I know that you weren't exactly a big fan of the deal, but it makes sense from the perspective of Edmonton. Again, a team that the management and coaching staff are on a short leash, and they need to have results quickly, and they have what they think are enough young wingers or not young prospects in the organization that they'd be willing to trade the top 10 pick. The rumor was Oscar Klefbom and the number 10 to Buffalo for Rasmus Ristolainen.
Yeah, I hate that deal.
Yeah, and it's all a question of how much you value.
And I like Ristolainen, I do, but the problem is I don't want to give up a pick that could be a player that's just as good as Rasmus Ristolainen, because I could still get somebody who's just as good in a couple of years. Right. And now I've given up Klefbom too, where again defense isn't my strength. It's too much of a risk.
But the whole thing with this deal is the sort of the machinations behind. I mean, I've heard speculation that the Sabres want to move Ristolainen as part of. I think it makes more sense to move Ristolainen because you can get more for him than trading Ryan O'Reilly at a $7.5 million cap hit. And supposedly the Edmonton organization has soured on Klefbom, even though Klefbom had injuries last year. So if those two things are true, then that deal makes more sense from both teams' perspectives. But player for player with the pick added in, you're right. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, we got 2 more questions, then we're done.
Okay.
No, there are 3, but I'm going to go quick on some of them. One of them is, what do we think that McDonough's next contract looks like? I think like 7.5 a year for 6 or 7 years is what he'll be looking for. I think he'll get 6 years, like 7.5.
I don't think he'll get 7.5 in Florida without the state tax. I think
that's true. He'll probably get 7 there.
I think he'll get 6.5.
Okay.
Stamkos was offered 10 to 11 by Toronto, and he took 8.5. So I'll bet you it'll be.
Yeah, he probably could take 6.5 there and still make out well. I like that deal. So that's that. And that was from Thomas. Thomas is asking the next one. That one was from, I don't know, because I lost my train.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
So who cares? No, sorry guys. Do we see Lou being, this is from Thomas, being active in the summer with trades and free agents? Of course. Obvious,
Yes.
That's his whole job. He wouldn't be brought there unless he was going to be active. So Lou will be probably the most active guy of anybody, actually, because they desperately need to get their team back on track. So there is that. And then Bill C asks, do we think any defensemen outside of Dahlin have a chance of starting in the NHL next year? I think really Quinn Hughes is the only other one because of the hard to lay a glove on him and dynamic skating ability and everything else. I think he could pull it off if he decides he wants to come out. I think he can. I don't think Noah Dobson, I think, has just unbelievable potential, but he's got to gain 15 pounds of muscle, and I would let him do that, or at least 10 pounds of muscle. So I wouldn't want him in there. Boquist, I think, is too prone to turnovers. He could definitely do the power play right away, but I think I would let Boquist get used to North America first. Bouchard is close, but I think I would let Bouchard go back for a year. So I don't think any of them other than Dahlin. But Quinn Hughes, if he went to the right team, I think he could do it.
If he went to a team that had a bigger defenseman that could sort of protect him, if all of a sudden, if he went to Tampa and he could play with Hedman.
Yeah. If it was something like that, then I think they could swing it. That team could swing it.
Okay. All right. Just as on a personal note here to finish off the show, just came down about an hour ago. Andy Frost, who is a very famous radio personality and was the PA announcer for the Maple Leafs from '99 till last year. He is leaving his position at Q107 in Toronto as the host of Psychedelic Sunday. He's longtime radio personality and in Toronto, and basically the man responsible for giving me my start as a caller on Leaf Talk back in 1997. So I'm sad to hear that his career in radio, in this instance, I'm sure he's going to have other irons in the fire going forward. But I have to just say, thank you, Andy, for giving me my start, and best of luck in whatever you're going to do going forward.
And you're welcome to come on off the post anytime. Just say
yes, the door is open. Anytime you want to come on the show and
talk a little hockey, you want to talk a little Stanley Cup, you want to talk about your son's development with the Flyers, of that's good.
And then that's the funny thing is, like, it's like he's been the most famous guy in his family for all these years in Toronto on the radio. And now he's going to take second fiddle to his son Morgan, who is probably going to be in the NHL in the next year or two. So that's great. Okay, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.